This is going to be a still life of an apple today. I have my colors already laid out, the cadmium red light, alizarin crimson, cadmium yellow, lemon yellow, ultramarine blue, sap green or viridian, burnt sienna, and yellow ochre. Sometimes I may put on my palette burnt umber. It makes an even a little bit of a darker dark than what a burnt sienna and a French ultramarine will do. And then ivory black or lamp black and some titanium white. So the first thing I'm going to start off by doing is laying in my drawing, which I will use my burnt sienna to put in my plumb lines and also to do a value sketch, which I will use as a grisaille. It's not going to be a very finished grisaille as I usually would do in one of my more finished paintings, but it will help me establish where my darks and my lights are going to be before I get too far into the painting, before I really start blocking in the painting. So first I'm going to measure, I have a black and white printout here. I actually have it laminated because I'm a homeschool mom and I love laminating things. So it's laminated, but you don't have to do that. I printed it off just so I can have the values as well as a color printout as well, but you can work from a screen like an iPad or an iPhone, or you can print it off as I did. So I'll be able to show you here a little bit how to do comparative measuring. So the first thing I'm going to do is measure the width and the height. So I'm using the edge of my brush here to mark the left side and my thumb to measure the right edge of it here. And so that is going to become an anchor size for me to measure the height of the apple. And so for me, I'm seeing that it is a pretty close to being the same. So I'm going to mark on my surface, which is a 7x9, I think, panel, or a board that I have primed and made myself. My husband cuts down the boards that I need for certain sizes, so you can make your own, but the panel or canvas paper is just as good. So I'm going to establish the size of the apple with where I want it to be placed on my canvas, and so then I'm going to use that just like we measured in the over at the picture, the printout. I'm going to measure the width and the height, and I'm going to leave little marks here to establish the plumb lines for the placement. So just going to really rudimentary place those in. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brush, which is my straight edge, although you've heard me talk about getting a knitting needle, which is an even truer a truer straight edge. As you can see, my brush has it's not a true straight edge, so you can pick up a knitting needle. I've got several of these around my studio, but this brush is pretty true toward the end of it where I'm using it, so I'm just gonna go with this. So now I'm going to be taking my brush and I'm going to be going around the apple like this and then translating that with my arm extended straight out and translating those angles over to my surface. And right now we don't want to be using any angled lines. We just want to establish these plumb lines with straight lines. Wipe away a little bit that I move that line out a little bit. And then I'm gonna go and lay in the shape of the cast shadow along the table there. So I can see the shadow kind of starts here. And I'm gonna go measure it to the width of the apple to see how far it's cast. About 1.5. So 1.5. So we're going about to there. And I can measure the angle of the angle of the shadow as it comes out. So I'm just taking my brush and I'm gonna be, sorry, maybe this is easier. I'm gonna measure the angle like this and translate those over to the surface. And then see where the shadow falls along the apple. So 1, 2, fit about 2.5 in. About there. Okay. So now I'm going to lay in the shape of the shadow side of the apple. I can actually first I'm going to just clean around the shape of the apple here because it's a little confusing to me. All these extra lines. Oops. It's about there. All right, so the shape of the shadow. So just gonna compare the angle from the top of the shadow here to the base here that I'm seeing. And I'm going to put my brush like this and then transfer that angle over to the surface. It's not going to be perfect, but it gives me a start. I just lost okay. And then we're gonna put that little dimple in. Going to indicate the core shadow a little bit here. Right. Actually, all of this is not, it's actually not that light until up here, but it's still the light shape. I'm just going to make it a little bit darker. I might wipe out some of that so it's not too dark. So now I'm just trying to lay in, I've laid in the light and the shadow side of the apple, and my drawing here is already, I lost it a little bit here, so I'm just gonna rework that in a little bit. Okay. right, now, oh, and I never explained the brush that I was using. This is a number 6. A number 6 filbert, and it's not a bristle brush. I'm forgetting the name right now, but I use this often to just draw put the drawing in, and so I will be changing out now for a bristle brush so that we can lay in some thicker paint. I'm gonna grab my number 6 filbert, and now I'm taking that burnt sienna, and I'm going to mix in a little bit of ultramarine blue to make a dark. And this is going to be about a 1, in between a 1 and a 2. And I'm going to put in the core shadow. Just gonna lighten it up a little bit and lay in the cast shadow here. Now I'm going to be mixing up the dark for the apple, and so grabbing some alizarin crimson to mix into the dark that I just had, and this is really going to warm it up. And I might get a little bit of yellow ochre just to lighten it up just a little bit. So I have well, it's still in between a 1 and a 2 value, so it's pretty close to the shadow, but for now we're gonna I'm gonna be careful to not destroy my drawing that I had laid in. So there's the dark of the apple as a block in. This is the block in stage, so I blocked in the shadow and I put my darkest dark in, and now I'm getting into the light shape. So now I'm gonna grab some cadmium yellow, and I'm gonna mix that in. So you can see in the value printout that the lightest light is not going to be white. It's not even close to white. And so I am going to just put some of that in there, that alizarin with the burnt sienna and ultramarine to kind of just put more of that chroma into the shadow. And so then now for the light, I'm going to clean off my brush and just so I can get some clean color. I tend to be a very messy painter. Not the reason I wear gloves, because the cadmiums are something that you should be careful of. They are toxic. And so I just always want to be careful around that, and so I'm always wearing gloves, plus it's easier to clean up because I tend to get paint everywhere. All right, so now for the light shape, I'm gonna take some yellow ochre and burnt sienna. And then I'm gonna mix a little bit of alizarin into that. I want it to be a warm color, but I don't want it to be like fire truck red. That's not what we're going for. So now I'm seeing that my value is off. If I place some of that there, you can see that my value is a little too dark. So I'm going to lighten that with a little bit of white, but not too much, just a dot. And then I'm picking up my paint, but it's still way too dark. So I'm gonna add even more white, which has now really, adding white, it really cools down your color, and so it's taking some of that warmth away. And actually what you can do, because this color is just wrong, is take that off, scrape it totally off. And let's try this one. It's still, we're gonna go with it for the block in. It is, I think it's what it needs to be, but until I get the light in there, I'm just not gonna be able to know. All right, so now for the light along the top of the apple, I'm going to mix a little bit more yellow ochre into that light that I just made with alizarin and burnt sienna. So that has even lightened it even more. But it's gonna need some white. It's definitely not where it needs to be. Getting a little bit of medium. That's better. Okay. All right, I lost the stem and where that's going to be placed, so I'm going to just take a little bit of my dark and lay it back in there. Let's put the background in now. That will help. It's hard to judge all of these relationships when my background is just way too bright. Excuse me. So I'm going to take some burnt sienna and ultramarine blue to make a gray, a warm gray. I'll get some white too. A lot of white, more white. sometimes I just place a little bit on my value printout, and I just to gauge where I am. It's better. Need a little bit more. Okay, so I'm just going to scumble. This is called scumbling, when you just kind of scrub the paint in. And I can see, because of the direction of the light coming from this direction, over here is going to be lighter, and on this side it's going to be darker, so you'll see a gradation along from right to left. So I'm going to try to show that as I lay in this block and layer. It's a little too dark, but we'll definitely cool it off as it goes. Getting a little bit more burnt sienna and ultramarine to darken, to make a dark for this upper corner here. I'm just kind of scooping the color up. Then I will, as I move back to the right, I'm going to lighten and make the background, the upper part of the background, a little bit more cooler, so the foreground is warmer and the background is a little bit cooler. So I'm going to add a little bit more ultramarine, and I'll lighten that up a little bit. I'm just kind of spinning my brush to get a lot of the paint off. And I'm just putting in some really broad strokes, making it even lighter and a little bit cooler. As it goes down, I'm going to darken it a little bit more. right, I'm gonna get my big brush and this is just a large soft brush, and I'm just going to pull up on my strokes just so that the glare is, I can take the glare off of the painting so I can see my values as they are. I'm trying to do it gently to not destroy my brush strokes. Alright. Now I'm just going to take a step back and take a look at this first layer. This is the block-in, and I see that it needs a lot of work yet. But it's a starting place, and so now let's move into a smaller brush to work on the apple a little bit more here. I'm gonna grab one of my, I'm gonna grab a softer brush. I usually don't get into a softer brush. But this early, however, with painting an apple, it's a very smooth surface, and sometimes the brushwork just needs alright, I've got the word I was thinking of before is asynthetic. So this is a bristle brush would be real hair, but this is a synthetic, so it's going to be much softer. So I am going to get back into that mix of alizarin, burnt sienna, and a little bit of white and yellow ochre. And I am going to just go back in and lay in here the shape of the apple a little bit. I'm just doing some shorter strokes. Okay, and then as it gets, let's work on the light shape a little bit here. I'm going to get some cadmium red and a little bit of yellow ochre to cut down on that chroma a little bit. To gray it off. Just put a little bit of ultramarine in there. As you can see, it's a bit dark, and so I'm already losing my shape. I'm losing the volume that contrast gives when you have the right contrast. It will show the form. Now I'm getting some cadmium yellow going to see how that value is. A lot of times I will place a stroke down thinking that I mixed the right value, but it's still way too light. And you really need to push it when it comes to your values to really get it to the place it needs to be. See, that's a lot better. Just cleaning off my brush. The more you can clean off your brush, the better your color is going to be in staying clean. Okay, I'm seeing a little bit of a mid-tone here that needs to come a little bit higher. I'm just getting some glare, so I need to take a step back and look. Now I'm just going back into my dark with, I'm trying to keep it the same within the that value there of a 2, to go back in and show a little bit of the reflected light, which is going to be along here. Getting a little bit more alizarin. The chroma that you see in this apple being red is going to be found in the mid-tone. And I have so much glare that it's getting harder here to see this. I'm just going to take a step back and see what I have. It looks as if my light needs to be even lighter, and one of the things that that always helps me move on to the next thing is finding what is is a problem and something that's screaming at me that needs to be changed. And so I'm seeing the light along the top of the apple needs to be lighter, and the shape of the shadow is also needs to be addressed as well. So I'm going to work on the light on the top of the apple first to get that where it needs to be. And so now I'm looking at my color sketch that I have printed. And I think what I need to do first is get some more yellow ochre and white and get that to be the warm light that's in there. And to get the chroma that it needs, I'm going to put in some lemon yellow. Some more white. All right, let's get that dark back that we lost when actually it's not that dark, it's just some alizarin. All right, we need to restart that pile with alizarin, and we'll just, I mixed a little bit of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, and then I grabbed some alizarin to darken that because it is a little bit warmer of a shadow. All right, so now let's go into the shadow of the apple. This is way too dark, but I'm going to be adding some white because I'm going to cool it off quite a bit compared to that warmth that we first laid in. And as the shadow goes away from the form, it'll get lighter. And now I'm seeing that my background is a bit too warm, and I really want the warmth of the apple to stand out more from the cooler, lighter background. So I'm gonna go in and address that next. I just want to soften that edge a little bit there. And I'm going to go back into the dark of the apple and reestablish some of the shape of it that I lost. I'm going to go back into that warm color that I made with the alizarin and burnt sienna. Where I kind of use that as the transition in between in the mid-tone, but it's way too dark, so I need to lighten that up. So I'm going to use yellow ochre to do that. And actually, because I have so much paint on here, I'm just going to take that paint off. Sometimes when you make these mistakes, and they are most of the time mistakes, they can be redone, but the like just scraping off what I did, it will bring a little bit of mystery into the surface of the painting. And I'm just gonna mix all these together to the lighter. And sometimes I totally lose it, and it's about finding what I've lost. And so now all of this is just becoming a dark and I need to reestablish my light shape. So I'm gonna go in with my yellow ochre and alizarin. I think I just have that shadow side way too dark, but again, with the glare, I can't really see. So I might be... Okay, now I'm gonna step back and see where I'm at. Oops. Let's go in and lay in some more on the light. I think that that's what I was missing, just a transition color over in the mid-tone here. So now I'm going to go back in with the light, and I am running out of white, but I will get some more here. And this is where the highlight is going to be, and so I'm going to, we aren't just going to place the highlight right there. We need to, I just need to refill my white. Let's lay in I still have a number 3 synthetic that I'm working with. All right, so now we need to prepare a place for that highlight. It's going to be right in there. So I'm just going to put a few lighter strokes of that mid-tone there, and let's see, and I'm squinting down. I think I have the lights where they need to be. That shadow, I still haven't gotten to that. I'm gonna go and work on the background a little bit here before we get back to the light on the apple. Let's see. Let's stand back and look at it one more time. To lighten it a little bit. And I'm going to remix my background color over here. Burnt sienna, ultramarine, and white. It's a bit too cool. It's more of a cool gray. I want it to be a warm gray. A little bit darker here. That is the wrong value. I've lost the value of my cast shadow, and that was just there we go, that's better. Bit darker even still. However, now the shape of it needs to be addressed. And I'm going to do that by mixing up this warm light that we had made at the very beginning. More ultramarine and burnt sienna and a little bit of white. Then I'm going to reestablish my darkest dark. Ultramarine and burnt sienna. We'll put the core shadow back in here. And let's go ahead and put in I'm just grabbing a long Pro Stroke. This is from Blick, to lay in the dark of that, of the stem. I'm gonna warm this up a little bit. A little bit of that shadow in there from the stem. Then there's a little bit of a light on this side of it. I don't know if I quite got it, but make this even darker. More burnt sienna and ultramarine. And as you can see, there is a problem here, and I'm going to fix it with a soft brush here. This is a bit too and I think for now I'm probably gonna come back and finish this one. Okay, so now to finish this off, I want to get the light on the apple a bit more refined, and I'm just gonna soften this. Sometimes all it takes is your finger to just soften an edge, and so I'm gonna bring a little bit more chroma into the light a little bit here, but still a little dark. I'll grab a little bit of yellow ochre. That's better. And I was refining a little bit of that of the stem, which got a little large, and so I'm gonna take the light in the background here, and I'm going to cut back into it a little bit. A lot of times these shapes you can carve out better than painting in. I know I'm gonna lose a little bit here of the, it's a little bit of yellow and white for that light shape, more yellow ochre, even more. There Getting a little bit more of that lemon yellow. A little more lemon yellow and maybe even a little bit of white. For the highlight, I'm going to take a little bit of white and looking at the shape of it there, I'm just going to put in some lighter alizarin and white. It's pretty grayed down, but that is going to make the highlight not feel so harsh when I lay it in as bright as it's going to be, as light as it's going to be. And it's not very light. However, I am going to let's see. I've got my number 2 bristle brush, and I just scooped some white on there, and I'm just gonna lay it on. And I hardly ever place a brush stroke and leave it. Most strokes need some modification. This one is going to be one of those. And I am going to take some of it off because it's a really subtle highlight. If the light is pretty soft on here, and so I'm just gonna put some more of that lighter pink around it. And then I'm gonna go back in and modify the stem a little bit on just a little bit of a lighter shape along here. I see a little bit of a greener color alongside that yellow. So I'm grabbing some Viridian or sap green, whatever you have here. Let's see. I keep losing the dark in here. Then I'm just gonna drag a little bit up the side. This needs to be softer. And same with the shadow over here. It's pretty soft. Put a little more light on the foreground, and I'm just gonna mix some white and burnt sienna. I'm gonna gray that off a little bit with some ultramarine. Oh, no, that is way too cool. Add a little bit more white. I know that stroke I put in is way too light, so I'm just gonna go back in. Modify it a little bit. And in so doing, then I messed up my drawing. You want to make sure you have enough brush. As you can see, my bristles are so rough that instead of laying paint down, because I don't have enough paint on my brush, all I'm doing is taking paint off of my painting. And that is not what I want to do. So I'm just lightening this up a little bit. the other thing I want to do is with the apple in the light, it needs a few strokes to set off the I want to make this darker, because as you can see kind of in the here in the value print that I have, it's darker here, and that really sets off the light on the apple, which now I'm seeing something else that ought to be modified here. That's this here. There. So what I'd like to do is just mix up a dark, making this a little bit warmer with my ultramarine and burnt sienna, which this is way too dark. I want to find, that's probably a little too dark, but I might see if I can make it work. Let's see. I just took it out because I don't know if it needs it. No, it does. Let's see, I'm just going to use a bigger brush. I'm just going to take my large brush and just take care of some of that glare. This is where, finding another mistake here, the shape of this shadow needs to wrap around a little bit more here. All right, I think this is going to be the end of the apple Still Life. Red apples are very tough, so if you're having a struggle with it, know that I did too. I will be posting a picture of my first apple. My first critique was that my apple looked like a fuzzy apple, and my my instructor Sergey gave me my first critique and told me that I needed to learn how to use a paintbrush, and it was something that I took to heart, and so if I can learn how to use a paintbrush, which I'm still learning, as you can see, you can learn as well.